by the time he was done talking, it was rather obvious they are going to sell. All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I am Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Cleanspark, stock ticker CLSK. They are a Bitcoin miner. We talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners quite a bit on this channel, so if you're new or you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. About half of our viewers are still not subscribed, so again, I appreciate the views, but if you would, hit the subscribe button. All right, let's talk about Cleanspark. Two things with Cleanspark. They've done their monthly operational update. They also released their first quarter earnings. So I want to go through both of those things. There's a lot to talk about. They've got a lot going on. So we'll talk about those things. And then I want to talk about their market cap, stock price, and take a look at the charts as well. So let's get going. I'm going to start with the monthly update. Okay, this was on May 5th. Cleanspark announces April 2022 Bitcoin production. So I'm just going to go through the highlights real quick. Bitcoin production and operations. April monthly production was 313 Bitcoin. So for those of you who watch the channel, I like to compare month over month because I find that meaningful. A lot of these miners compare year over year, and everything's changed so much in the last year that that's not a very meaningful comparison. So let's just take a quick look back. You'll see that in March, they produced 318 Bitcoin. Also in March, they had an exahash rate of 2.3. So if I go back to April, you'll see that they produced 313 Bitcoin. Now, that's 5 less Bitcoin. However, there is 1 less day in April. So actually, they did have a very small uptick in their Bitcoin produced per day on average in the month of April. So it was pretty close. And then you'll see down here, they currently deploy over 24,000 latest and greatest Bitcoin miners with a total hash rate of now 2.4 exahash. So that's up from 2.3 exahash. Their calendar year-to-date production is 1,211 as of April 30th. So that's the first third of the year. Total BCT holdings at April 30th, 448. So we're going to go through their Bitcoin holdings. They addressed this in their earnings call. So I do want to talk about that, but you'll see they do spend a lot of their Bitcoin. So they said total Bitcoin converted for operations and growth in April was 285 Bitcoin. So they fund all their operations and growth through Bitcoin recently and in the month of April. So here they say the company fully funded growth and operations through the sale of 285 Bitcoin in April 2022 at an average of approximately 41,764. So here's an instance where it actually paid off that they sold their Bitcoin for the moment. Bitcoin is now at around 30,000 or 29,000. Okay, so this came in right around expectations. So this was a good monthly update. Cleanspark has dramatically improved the amount of Bitcoin that they're mining on a quarterly basis. So when we get to the quarterly report, you're going to see quarter over quarter, they are up quite a bit in production. So this was a good month and a good quarter. Let's take a look at the quarter. Cleanspark reports second quarter fiscal year 2022 financial results. So the second quarter of their 2022 is the 3 months ended March 31st, 2022. Okay, so quote, the theme of this quarter has been operational and financial execution, said Zach Bradford, Chief Executive Officer. While the whole industry faces macro headwinds primarily driven by a lower average Bitcoin price, we continue to execute on our infrastructure-first strategy. We have a line of sight of 600 megawatts of power, in large part by the recent agreement we signed with Lancium at the end of the quarter. He then goes on to say, as for our capital strategy, our growth CapEx was funded 100% from the conversion of Bitcoin. So we talked about that in the month of April, so that was for the entire quarter in the first quarter as well. We have not utilized the shelf offering since November, and that is November of 2021. So that means they have used mostly their Bitcoin that they've mined. They also did structure a little bit of debt, $35 million, so that will help. We continue to right-size our capital structure through means of non-dilutive capital. Okay, so that has been their principle. I will tell you, on the conference call, they talk specifically. They want to have a strategy where they hodl Bitcoin over time. However, they do not want it to be at the expense of shareholders where there's massive dilution. So they're going to hodl what they can. In the meantime, they have paid for the vast majority of the machines that they have ordered. Another thing that they talked about on the call was the fact that the price of Bitcoin mining machines, they are expecting to come down, whereas it was impossible a year ago. You had to order a year out in advance. There are now machines done and made and ready that are available for sale. So they are expecting to be able to reduce their cost per terahash when they buy machines, and they're going to buy those opportunities opportunistically on the spot market more so than having to order them in advance. They're not the only ones. I think the whole industry is moving that way at this time. The bottleneck in the Bitcoin mining industry no longer seems to be the machines. It seems to be the infrastructure and the power. So that is why they have talked about they are having an infrastructure first strategy. They have the infrastructure lined up for all the machines they're already operating, as well as all the machines that they've purchased from now through the end of the year. Okay, so I want to take a quick look at their balance sheet as of March 31st, 2022. This balance sheet looks a little bit different than some of the other Bitcoin miners because, again, they have been spending their Bitcoin, not hodling it. So they have a philosophy of keeping a low cash balance and funding operations and CapEx through their Bitcoin. So as a result, their current assets are just under $42 million, which is less than their peers. However, what I want to talk about is their longer term assets, most specifically their property equipment and their deposits. You'll see property and equipment. So this is their mining equipment, $276 million they've spent on mining equipment. In addition to that, deposits on mining equipment is another just under $70 million. So that's $345 million that they have on their balance sheet of Bitcoin mining equipment. So I want you guys to remember that number because I'm going to circle back to that. So they have about $24 million left to pay off, and they will own not only all the machines they have right now, but all the machines that they have on order that will be delivered in 2022. So that will get them to just over 4 exahash. I think they said 4.1 on the earnings call. At that point, they will have spent $370 million on Bitcoin mining equipment alone. And what I want to take a quick look at is, if you look at this company, CleanSpark closed the day yesterday at $5.02. So I'm doing this video before the market opens this morning. So as of the end of the day yesterday, their market cap was $208 million. So we just looked at the fact they've spent $370 million in the last 2 years on brand new Bitcoin mining equipment. So if we go back to their balance sheet, you'll see they only have $23 million in liabilities against that. So it's not like they borrowed a lot of money and they owe that money. This is just equity. So this is one of the reasons that I feel that, in my opinion, CleanSpark is oversold. So again, I have to reiterate, this is not financial advice. I'm giving you guys some numbers. I want to walk you through these numbers as closely as I can and let you know what's going on. And I'm also giving you my opinion that I think this is oversold. But remember, you need to do your own due diligence before buying any stocks. Please don't listen to me or any other YouTuber for that matter as it pertains to making a buying decision. Okay, so their market cap is $208 million. I'm going to go to this chart here. This is basically a chart of their market cap over the last 2 years. I wanted to point out two numbers. Back in January of 2021, so that was well over a year ago, this was when they just started mining Bitcoin. They had only mined about 50 Bitcoin as a company at this point. Their market cap was $1 billion at that time. It is now $200 million. It's down 80% from there. This was in January of 2021, and the high growth stocks were in a bit of a bubble. So even if we were to dismiss this, if I go to their highs in November, and this was when Bitcoin was at its all-time high, their market cap was $860 million. So they're still down over 75% from that. And remember, they've grown substantially since then. So to put it in perspective, November was fourth quarter 2021. In the fourth quarter of 2021, they mined 660 Bitcoin. So in the first quarter that they just released, that we just looked at, they mined 898 Bitcoin. That is a 36% increase quarter over quarter. So that's sequential growth. That's the type of growth that we look for in these high growth stocks. And they're on pace to beat that every quarter for the rest of the year. Again, they've already bought machines and have them scheduled for delivery to just about double their exahash again and get them to about 4.1 exahash by the end of the year. They mentioned that their gross margin was 71%, and that's their gross mining margin. So that was down a little bit from 79% in the prior quarter, and that is strictly due to the fact that the price of Bitcoin was down quarter over quarter. So they specifically mentioned this was not an increase in cost per Bitcoin. This was just a decrease in the price of Bitcoin. But even with the large decrease in price of Bitcoin, they were still at a 71% gross profit margin for mining. So that leaves an awful lot of room for them to remain up and in business and profitable. They did talk about growth. They talked about potentially getting some new facilities of their own. And they mentioned basically from this point forward, it's their intention to use immersion cooling with any new facilities that they may build or buy themselves. So they're very interested in immersion cooling. They think that's the future of this. They think it greatly extends the life of the machines as well as the productivity of the machines. I think you can expect to see more immersion cooling from CleanSpark in the future. And lastly, not in so many words, but I will tell you, my very strong interpretation is the CEO basically said they are going to sell the energy segment of this. So he basically said that without saying that. He said they were going to shore up their capital and their cash flow and that all options were on the table. So, by the time he was done talking, it was rather obvious they are going to sell the energy segment of this company if and when they can. So he did give a little specific shout out to some of the older shareholders who may have bought in at the time that this was a microgrid energy company. And he basically talked about, listen, we still have the same principles that Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mining network is a big part of the future infrastructure for energy. So, he did talk about that kind of in a farewell way. So I would expect to see them as soon as they can. I would expect them to sell that portion of the business off and generate cash flow that they will use to increase their mining business. So I thought that was, the handwriting's been on the wall for quite some time, but he pretty much said it in this quarterly conference call. So let's take a quick look at the chart. Okay, this is zoomed way out. This is CleanSpark on the one-day time frame. I just want to show you from their all-time high. So their stock price is down about 88.5%. They are getting close to down 90% from their 18-month high, which was their all-time high. More recently, if we go from their November high, they are down 79%. So very nearly 80% just from their November high. So that's in the last 6 months. So again, like all the other Bitcoin miners, CleanSpark has taken a massive, massive hit to their stock. So this is another instance where, for me, I see the company's operational reports and earnings reports, and I feel like the company is performing well. However, clearly the stock is not performing well at all. The stock is sick. Okay, this is Bitcoin on the 1 hour time frame. So you'll see this green candle right here was at the open. So there was initial upsurge at the open, but even at the end of this 1 hour candle, this still was lower than the close yesterday. So CleanSpark never got positive on the day today, but after the first 1 hour, you can see this basically went down the rest of the day. It ended up down 11.93, so basically 12% on the day. That takes out their all-time low since they became a Bitcoin miner, which was set the day before. So what I wanted to just point out is there's a white line here at $10.85. This line is where CleanSpark was trading when Bitcoin hit 29,000 last summer, in the summer of 2021, so almost a year ago. Well, Bitcoin has now hit 29,000 again today. And you will see that CleanSpark is down 53.5% from where it was the last time Bitcoin hit 29,000. So CleanSpark has dramatically underperformed versus the performance of Bitcoin. So in my opinion, I expect that this stock is very oversold right now. These stocks continue to tumble. Having said that, in my opinion, there is a lot of upside on this one. So this is one where you guys really got to do your own risk-reward analysis, because I do think over the long haul, for me, I view this as a good buying opportunity. But obviously, please do your own due diligence and make your own buying decisions. So I think that brings you up to date on CleanSpark. Thanks so much. Again, if you made it this far, please remember to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. Thanks again. We will see you in the next video.